Hey everyone, welcome to the Naughty Shaman podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Carlisle, and I can't wait to dive in to a world where the sacred meets the wild and keeps things totally real. In each episode, we are going to dive into what it truly means to live a radiant life that is unapologetically real. And if you're ready to get started, so am I. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Naughty Shaman podcast. My name is Natalie Carlisle, and I am so glad that you are here joining me. Tonight's episode is going to be all about shamany stuff, and I can't wait to talk about it because somebody told me, oh my gosh, not everybody wakes up in the world and thinks, man, I need a shaman today. I mean, that happened to me. I woke up and was like, yeah, I need to talk to a shaman. No, but I really wanted to spend some time kind of exploring this whole idea of what does a shaman do and how do you know if you need one? Because in my opinion, everybody needs one, especially now in the world. And what's beautiful is that, shamans and these really deep soul workers and energy workers are kind of blossoming around the planet, helping with this. Oh, I love how Eckhart Tolle, however you wish to say his name, how he has this whole essay in his book. I think it's in The Power of Now, that opening first essay, one of the best essays ever written. But he talks about the flowering of consciousness. And that's happening on the planet right now. And so you are seeing so many more shamanic people, shamanic practitioners, shamans, shamanic coaches, all these different shamanic people are kind of coming out of the woodwork. And I'm happy it's gaining in popularity. I knew it would, because you could almost track the trends of what was happening in our world about 10, 15 years ago. 10, 15 years ago, shamanism was super weird. And when I would, come out of the closet, people would be like, what? Now, when I say, oh yeah, I'm a shaman, people will go, oh yeah, I worked with a shaman, or my friend's friend is a shaman, or I'm a shaman too, or it's just so more available in the world, which makes my heart smile because it's needed. And what was happening 15 years ago when it was super weird is that we were on a trajectory, at least here in the US, about really breaking up with organized religion. People were leaving religious houses in droves. And, statistically, it's astronomical the amount of people have stopped with organized religion. And organized religions are really feeling the heat of this. And so that's happening. But the leaving of a religious organization, in my mind at least, does not mean no longer wishing to talk about the soul. The soul is what people yearn to connect with, their own soul. They yearn to connect to another soul. There's a soulful connection that people are yearning for in the world, and used to be able to find it in organized religion and all these different religion houses, all the Abrahamic religions that are around the world, the big three, and then many others. But it's fascinating what's happening. I'm going to wax philosophical in this podcast, so just put your seatbelt on and enjoy. It's interesting to me what's happening in the world because, as the world is kind of moving away, trending away from participating in organized religion, they are considering themselves spiritual but not religious. And so it begs the question of when people are in crisis, soul crisis, where do they go? They used to call their priest, they used to call their pastor, they used to call their minister, they used to call their, all the different things, but who do they call now? They're not picking up the phone in as many numbers as they used to and calling the rabbi. They're not, doing these things so much. Not sending their kids to different religious schools and organizations as much. So where do we find spirit? Where in our lives do we touch the soul? And there's a huge gap there, huge gap, because what you have in your life, if you don't have a sense of soul or a sense of a way to talk about the deeper ideas in life, then you are left with the mundane. You are left with waking up, driving to work, taking care of the kids, making dinner, cleaning up dinner, going to bed, waking up, going to work, making the dinner, taking and it's a super boring, senseless, meaningless Groundhog Day. And unfortunately, that's how many souls are experiencing their life right now here on the planet, because they have lost touch and they have lost the arena in which to talk about, why am I here? How do I deal with death and dying? How do I cope with losing a child? And as much as we like to make psychology our religion now, our psychologist is like the new priest, right? It's not the same. A psychologist is trained in a different way, and the conversations are typically different unless you have a really good one. And there are those out there, and I love them, and I have a SWAT team of them on speed dial because it's such a nice complement to the work that we do in the energetic world and in the soul world. So the conversations of the soul need a house. They need a sacred place where people can contemplate things like, what if this is a simulation? This is one of the conversations around, my family and around the Dharma School family as well, and the Naughty Shaman family. What about aliens? Like, what is that? Are we aliens? Where did we come from? Are we star stuff? Did we come from a little microbe on a meteorite that landed in the ocean a billion years ago and then evolved? Like, how did it all begin? Were we all smashed up, walking around with dinosaurs? Like, what is all this? And to have a safe place to explore all of that through different lenses is important. And so the role that I see emerging for these modern shamans, those of us who were not born into a tradition of shamanism, but through life's happenings have been called and have been in the crucible of pain, disease, suffering, whatever it is, and come out of it, and now have been trained to be soul guides here on the planet. We have an important role. All of you out there that are listening to this podcast, we have an important role in our culture right now. Right now. In some traditions, people would believe that you chose to be here as a soul in the body you chose to be in right now, so that you could be here for what's unfolding on the planet, right? Everyone who's ever been around through time has chosen to be during that time for whatever reason. So that theory exists, which I just find so exciting, because it takes the victim out of the story of, I was born in the wrong family, or I wasn't supposed to be born, I don't belong here on the earth, or all the ways that we suffer through the victim mentality of feeling like we don't belong here, which most of us, especially people who are listening to this podcast, most of us have felt like outsiders. That's the big kicker. There isn't any kid in junior high and high school who felt like they were on the inside. Everybody felt like a freak. Everybody felt like a weirdo, except when we're growing up, we go inward and sometimes isolate with our feelings of being an outsider. And over time and isolation and hiding our true selves, we start to believe that we are the only people who have ever suffered feeling like an outsider or being weird. And what I know, sitting where I sit, having trained hundreds and thousands of people, is that every single person I talk to has felt like a weirdo. Every single one. And it's delightful. But that's part of the hardship that we have to go through, is figuring out who we are and figuring out how to wrestle with that pain in our culture that exists. So I'm a little bit down a rabbit hole. So let me back up the bus. I'm backing up the bus. So I'm going to back up the bus to this whole idea of why people need shamans in their lives. And a lot of it has to do with, what's going on in our spiritual reality. Shamans would argue that every illness, every emotional pain, every moment of suffering that we are having because we are disconnected from three things. First, we are disconnected from our Mother Earth, which is the natural cycles of the planet and of the cosmos. We are disconnected from when the sun comes up, when the sun goes down. Our biorhythms are not connected to those anymore like they were when we were farmers or gatherers or hunters. We're not connected to the moon cycles, to the tides, and we're not connected to this idea that there is a living organism that we live with every day on the planet, that the planet is a living organism and that we are a part of it, that we don't own it. So this disconnection that we have with our home is the source of all illness in the shamanic purview. The other place that causes stress and suffering is the disconnection that we have from ourselves and sense of connection to spirit. That disconnection from spirit causes a lot of suffering. And I know a lot of you have heard this story, but in the Judeo-Christian, all the Abrahamic religions, there's the story of the Garden of Eden. And in Dharma school, we return people to the garden. And part of the reason that we return to this garden is because of the way that the story of Adam and Eve, even if you don't go to church, you don't believe this, it's in our culture, this idea of snakes are evil and there's temptation and God's far away or not there at all. Like all those ideas culturally kind of come from this root story in our culture. And so I'm going to tell you the Naughty Shaman version of the Garden of Eden. So essentially what went down, Adam and Eve, they're hanging out in the garden. It's awesome. Everything they could possibly want or need is there. Their souls are so satisfied and at peace and in equanimity. They don't even need clothes. They're talking to the animals. They're talking to the plants and the trees. Everything's balanced. They're naming stuff. It's cool. It's totally cool existence in this place. Eve gets a little curious. She's like, damn, that looks like a good apple. And she's talking to the snake. And she says, I think I'm going to go eat that apple. I want to know stuff. I want to get wise. I love it. And so she's like being a curious, lovely human, takes a bite out of that apple. And then something super duper traumatic and tragic happens in the story. In that moment, God comes down, the God that's way up in heaven. Okay. God's not here in the garden anymore. Everything we need is not in the garden anymore. Our celestial spiritual father is no longer with us. He's way up high somewhere, comes down from heaven and is like, you woman will be cursed to bear the pain of childbirth and labor for this, evil thing that you've done, tasting from the tree of knowledge. The one thing I asked you not to do, you did. And then God curses man and says, Adam, you will feel the pain of labor on your back as you carry the weight and plow the fields and no. So our beloved spiritual father comes to our house, comes in the garden and curses his children and then splits. He just curses us and splits up to heaven where we have to do like 87 things to ever get back to in touch with him, depending on your religion. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of commandments, there's a whole bunch of touchstones, there's a whole bunch of practices, whatever it is, you've got to do it all absolutely correctly, or no, you don't get to see dad anymore. Dad's gone. And that's sad. That when you think about that abandonment of our father, of our soul father in that moment, and the residue that we can't even comprehend consciously. It happens on a subconscious, physical, emotional level. This feeling of abandonment that many of us carry isn't from our mom and dad. It's not from our immediate family. It's a cultural experience, and we all have a little sliver of it, or a big 2x4 of it in our being. This fear of like, oh, if I'm not doing it right, or if I'm not good enough, I'm not going to be loved. Dad's going to split. Everyone I love and everyone that all my safety is going to be gone. So that happens, but that's not even all of it. What also happens in that story is our mother, our cosmic mother, this Mother Earth who feeds us and provides water for us and provides beauty for us and shelter for us. She's all of a sudden like this tempestuous whore, right? Oh, can't believe in the Mother Earth because the snake is one of her creatures and tempted you off into the bad things. And so in this moment, our beloved mother, our beloved one who let us borrow atoms and minerals and all of this stuff to make our bodies, is now also damned and called whore and shamed and labeled a temptress, and bad, evil things are in the dark earth, soil, down in hell. And so in this one moment of eating an apple that God created, we lose. Our dad abandons us, curses us, and then abandons us. And then our mother is shamed, named, and declared evil. And then we are left all alone, these orphaned children in the garden, like, oh shit. And now we're starting to feel shame and feel separate and not good enough and abandoned. And we're also feeling like we're bad. So any one of us that have grown up in a culture with that, depending on the hands of the storyteller, I'm making it super dramatic here. In the hands of a good religious leader, that story has lots of delicious flavors to it. But in the starkness that sometimes it is told, there's a tremendous amount of fear and heartbreak in that story, and a tremendous amount of disconnection. What's fascinating, and when I was working with Alberto Violdo, one of my teachers, is that one of the stories that he shares is that when the conquistadors came, the missionaries came soon after them to kind of convert and, de-savagize them or whatever. And that happened all around the world in many ways, tragically. The shamans and the indigenous people did not have a story like that. They did not have a story of, hell down there is bad. They were like, no, this is like the good stuff. This is our mother. We take care of her. We borrow stuff from her. We stay in balance with her. Like, we're cool. Me and what they call Pachamama, we're cool. And spirit is not like way up there. Spirit, the beloved father, is like right here in the wind and the trees and in the sparks in our eyes and animating all of life. So they're not separate. The wound of separateness is super diminished in this old culture of the Caro Indian and many others around the world. And so that is one reason why our modern culture needs shamans, is because this idea of a different paradigm. Boy, I'm using the 1980s lingo tonight. This different way of thinking about our existence, that perhaps it wasn't such a bad thing to be curious in the garden, And perhaps our spiritual father never left. Perhaps it's right here in the conversation we're having right now through the internet and YouTube and this magical thing, through the sound waves of my voice into the openings of your ears. Perhaps there is the divine right there, our beloved Father. Perhaps the beloved Mother is all around us in the oceans, her great big beating heart with the waves crashing on the sand, and in the rivers that flow, and in the seeds that grow from darkness into light. Seeds need darkness, and so do we. That's why winter time is so important. We need those periods of darkness in our life for quiet, for deepening our relationship with ourselves, for restoration. Those are important times. And many people in our modern culture do not have a relationship with that because it has been judged evil. Resting, times of quiet, times of being alone, times of vulnerability, times of openness, times of no action. These things are critical in the cycles of nature. And these things are critical in our cycles because we are a part of nature. Yeah. People around the world are forgetting this. And what sometimes, if I let it, kind of gets to my heart and breaks it just a smidge, is this idea that places where once there were many indigenous people who had similar beliefs, modernity, modern living, is making its way into these cultures too. And now they're craving faster, better, stronger, compete, win. And that's great. There's a cycle for that. There's a cycle for growth. There's a cycle for this period of blossoming. And there's a cycle for a period of dying and restoration and germination and blooming and sharing seeds and dying and germinating and restoration and blooming and sharing seeds. And we have forgotten that. We, in our modern culture, hustle. We hustle and jive, hustle and grind. And that's in many pockets still very coveted, still very much a value. And in my opinion, we're going the wrong way. We're going the wrong way. It's not in harmony to live like that. It's not sustainable. Nature doesn't live like that. It's unnatural to live like that. And so this is why the world needs shamans now. Many people are suffering because of this disconnection with the natural cycles of Earth, with the idea that Earth is a living organism, and we are a part of that, and disconnected from spirit. That disconnection from spirit can create hopelessness, despair, and depression. Because life without that, something bigger than you, starts to become, how shall I say, meaningless. Meaning and purpose is something that the Harvard Medical Review has just published about, in terms of keys for longevity, that purpose and meaningfulness, they said it way better than I'm saying it right now, but this idea of a meaningful life and this idea of a meaningful existence and a purpose to waking up in the morning and a connection to spirit. They use the word spiritual in the Harvard Medical Review when talking about longevity, because it is a critical factor in folks that live to be centenarians, these people that live to be 100 or older. And I love that dialogue is happening. There's a shift happening on the planet. And wisdom keepers are finding their way in all kinds of ways, even in the Harvard Medical Journal, right? There's wisdom being printed in there sometimes, and it's wonderful to find it. And I count wisdom as a very holistic kind of a way to include the human elements and the spiritual elements, and all of it's not very separate anyway. So for me, that's how I kind of look for the wisdom. So the other reason that the world needs shamans right now is that there are many young people born into the planet or coming of age in the planet in this digital age, which drives the wedge between nature and humans even further. This is the first generation that one of the other medical reviews, and I can't remember which one right now, where we have been determined to be now an indoor species. If you're a Gen Xer like me, we were an outdoor species. We grew up, we weren't allowed in the house, for crying out loud. We weren't allowed in the house for hours until like the streetlights came on, which, was many of us. And that's not happening anymore. And kids are urged from the time they're 3, and this happened in my family, my community too. And I don't think it's healthy, but they're urged from the time of 3 to get into the soccer program, the gymnastics program, because if they're going to get a scholarship to get into the great college, so they can get the great job, so they can get the great money, so they can get the great boat, so they can get the great life, so they can be happy, they're going to bust their ass from the time they're 3 on this career track and go to work a couple times a week instead of having free time. Unstructured time is something that the younger generations do not know how to cope with. And that, among many other things, in terms of the digital media influences there, but it is one of the contributing factors to the higher degree of depression. Depression has increased on the planet in 12-year-olds, almost 60% in some studies. That's too much. That's too much for our young people, don't you think? And the heartache comes because we are no longer connected to our father or our mother. And that's huge. The other reason that shamans, the third disconnection point that shamans will talk about as the cause of all illness and suffering, is the disconnection from one another. The not seeing ourselves as a member of a community. We've become very isolated. And I loved reading some article, and I can't remember where, so I'm going to try to quote it, but it was about laundry and how, as these huge capacity laundry machines were created, and then laundromats were created that created, this easier way for people to do laundry, that was really kind of a huge shift, because it went from people hanging out their laundry to dry or washing clothes together in their neighborhood because it was just more fun that way to do this terrible chore together and share soap and water and watch the kids run around while you're doing that and all that. So women used to get together and scrub and hang and talk and gossip. And even if you didn't get together to scrub, you would hang. And so people would know, oh, there was a baby born, or, oh, somebody got new jeans. And so they would be able to still see their neighbors through the clothesline and other things and outside all the time. So then the laundromat happened. So then most at this time were women who were taking care of the home. So women would go to the laundromat and they would put the laundry in, and then they would have to wait. They're at the laundromat, and so they might read a book or talk to a friend or talk, whatever. And there was a social element to that where we were still connected, even though we had a machine to help us out. And then the next phase of that laundry development was that we got laundry machines in our home. And now no one had to go outside to do laundry with each other or see each other. And then laundry became like a private thing. Like you couldn't let anyone see your socks or your underwear, things like that. And then because laundry was in the home, women then would put in a load of laundry and then do 17 other things while that was going on. So that moment to pause, connect, feel the sun on your face, those moments of downtime started to go away. And that was a huge change in our culture. And every technological development that we've created then has also lacked the same heart. It goes with the mind. The mind goes so fast, and the heart of our culture has not caught up to how fast our mind goes, because we have historically not valued our hearts, our emotions, our souls. And we cannot create from our minds alone anymore. We have to weave in our heart, the wisdom that lies there, the emotional truths that we know has to evolve with it. And our whole consciousness has to evolve with it, or we are going to do more harm to ourselves as human beings, right? Because technology is more, better, faster. It's linear. It's all the time. And we have to bring these softer things in with it to see if it makes sense to do and how to do it in a way that serves the community. So this is why the world needs shamans now. This is why we are blossoming up everywhere. And this is why it's critical. The young people are having spiritual awakenings, and they think there's something wrong with them. They think they're going crazy because they've been so disconnected that when they have a moment, a break into the world, that there's something bigger than them. You know, many of them will have a vision or a dream, or maybe they'll do hallucinogenic drugs, and they'll start to see like, oh my God, we're all one. And, you know, all this. I just was talking to a young man about this the other day, and he really thought he was going crazy, like sick, and he didn't want to talk to anyone about what was happening to him. But he had done, I think, psilocybin and got opened up to this world where he could see all of the connections between people and everything that we were doing to the planet, and how it all was webbed together. And if we harm one here, it's connected over here. And that knowing, that bit of knowing that he got in that moment was so deep. Like it penetrated into him, this knowledge, this wisdom of the cosmos, and shook him to his soul. He became overwhelmed with this idea that we're all connected, to the point where he started to become afraid to do anything, say anything, for fear of kind of messing up the delicate balance of the universe. That's a lot of pressure on our young people. And there are not adults spiritually mature enough. There are not that many of them around for him to go talk to give him context on that, to let him know that, yeah, that's a rite of passage. This moment is a gift. And here's how to navigate that. This is why the world needs shamans now. This is why we came. Shamans historically are bridges between dimensions, between worlds, and we traipse through the spirit world and the physical world and the ancestor world and so many worlds in service to the higher good. And as these bridges between dimensions or consciousness, one of the things that we cannot forget to bridge as shaman is bridge people back to themselves, bridge people toward one another, bridge people back to the earth. We have to continue to build these bridges for people so that they can see for themselves and heal themselves. That's why the world needs shamans right now. The world needs shamans too, because we have become addicted to suppressing anything in life that doesn't feel the way we want it to. We have become like spoiled children, spoiled spiritual children, that when life is like not what I want, or someone said something bad about me, or that we crumble. We've lost a bit of our inner strength over the decades, and we've lost a sense of who we are and that we are important. And now there are adults who grew up that way that don't know that they're important, and they're raising children who don't know that they're important. And there's a soul weakness in these people. And that soul weakness creates such a tremendous amount of fear and anxiety in people because they can feel it, even though they don't have words for it or acknowledge it, or maybe it's even a subconscious knowing of this hollowness inside, is how I've had some clients describe it, that they feel hollowness inside. And so when the world throws something they don't like their way, like it does, that's what life does sometimes. Sometimes you break your legs, sometimes you lose your money, sometimes you get dumped, sometimes someone calls you an asshole. That's life. But when those things happen, it's such a shock to the system because they haven't had to experience the resilience it takes and the strength it takes to move in a community. Because of our degree of isolation, we don't have to listen to music we don't like. Apparently, we don't have to read books that we don't like either. We can rewrite history to make it make sense. There is this strange and very dangerous belief that is prolific in our culture right now, is that life should be happy and life should be easy. I don't know where that was written down, but I didn't get that memo. Did you? Life shouldn't be anything but life. My other Alberto story that I love to share is the one where he shares this, and anyone who had the good fortune of studying with him probably knows this story, and I think it's in several of his books. But Alberto Villoldo used to tell this story of that there was a shaman that got called to a village to help out the village people because they had a whole bunch of sheep, and the sheep were how the village made its livelihood. But a few times a year, like these pumas would come down out of the mountains and just gobble up a couple sheep. And it was like, send people into like this fear state and panic. And so they would pray and make offerings, and they called in the shaman to bring balance back because these evil jaguars were coming out. These evil pumas were coming out of the mountains and eating up their sheep. And so the shaman, fasted and prayed and got into alignment and gathered all of his supernatural forces, or natural forces, if you will, to come to his aid. And after 3 or 4 days, the people in the village are like, dude, what's going on? So one guy who was nominated to be the one to go talk to the shaman went into the little shaman hut, the little shaman cave, and said, dude, what's going on? And the shaman said, there's nothing wrong here. Just a puma being a puma. And I loved that bit of wisdom of, it's very easy to look at life's experiences that we don't like the death of a loved one. Oh my gosh, how painful is that? For many people. And when you lose a limb, a life, your youth, your ability to play pickleball, whatever it is, things are sometimes hard. Life can sometimes be painful, truly. And when we try to avoid pain, we avoid life and become zombies. I mean, go walk around a Walmart or somewhere where there are a lot of people, amusement park even, just zombies. There's a hollowness to the soul because they're afraid of feeling pain. They don't want to feel any of that. And they don't know how to cope with emotions or feelings or experiences that are other than pleasant. And that creates a weakness inside of us as individuals. And right now, the world needs more than anything a spiritual strength back. We need our soulful strength back. And it has nothing to do with what religion you are. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the capacity of your heart. The capacity of our hearts has dwindled to like a thimbleful. We can only hold a thimble of emotion, and that's like happiness and elation and Bud Light commercials. That's the only thing we can hold in our hearts. And we need to be stronger than that. We need to develop this muscle of our heart like we would develop the muscle in our biceps. We need to develop that so that that heart can stay open in the face of heartbreak, in the face of grief, in the face of death, in the face of fear, in the face of anything. That heart can stay open and stay present. That's the strength that we cultivate in Dharma school. That's the strength we cultivate in each of our students. That's the strength we want to cultivate in each of our clients, because that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take to kind of shift the juju on the planet right now. Because right now we are being led and participating in systems that are led by weak-souled people. And that's not healthy for the larger community. So we need to start cultivating now leaders for the future that have the strength inside of them to hold and witness and bear witness to all of life and bring people together, bridge people back to themselves, back to the earth, and back to themselves and to one another. And this is why the world needs shamans right now. So many reasons the world needs shamans right now. And you might need one personally right now if you've got a dream you want to make real and don't know how to begin, or are afraid to begin, or feel guilty for having a dream when there's so much suffering in the world. You need a shaman. If you just had the craziest dream and it felt so real and you don't know what to make of it, but you want to understand the world of mystery, then you need a shaman. If you've got a chronic pattern in your life that you keep repeating over and over and over again, then you need a shaman, right? If you are so sick of your own bullshit stories about life and yourself, if you're so sick of your own bullshit, you need a shaman. You need a shamanic coach that can see through that bullshit and talk you through how to move through that bullshit and step back into your wisdom. Because you were born with it. You were born with the knowing of the cosmos in your bones. That carbon, that helium, all of the elements that make you have been around since matter and energy were born. It's the same stuff. You have this wisdom in you. You have forgotten the language. That's all. You've forgotten the language of the cosmos. And that's what shamans practice listening to. And with practice and discipline, we get better and better at that. And we can teach that to you. You were born to do it. You were born to be a shaman. And if you like wine, you were born to be a naughty shaman. Or if you like staying up too late or miss meditation sometimes, and you were born to be a naughty shaman. This is why the world needs especially naughty shamans right now. A lot of humor and a lot of depth. So, my friends, this is why the world needs shamans right now. If you're hearing the calling, and callings, we're not evangelical crew. We're not ever going to be like, everybody in the world needs to be a shaman, because God knows there isn't a shaman around that would want you to go on this journey, because it is a difficult journey where you have to really get vulnerable and get clear and do things that you're afraid of and have courage and be brave. There are rites of passage along the way that some people can't make. And yet there are people that are called to this. And you're called to this deeper, soulful bridge building between dimensions and consciousness. You know that you're a bridge builder and called to this if you've had deep suffering and pain or illness or death in your early life. That's often what a calling looks like, is intense suffering. A calling can also look like a dream so real that it lingers on your skin for days. That's a calling. A calling is something inside people, and it sometimes looks like a drive to go further into the mystery, to go further into the mystery teachings, and can't stop, because that soul is so hungry for its birthright, the birthright of knowledge, the birthright of wisdom, the birthright of peace. Our souls, in many theories, and this is my favorite way to talk about it, and I believe this because it makes life better to believe this. But of course, none of us know the answer. So choose beliefs that make you feel kick-ass is kind of my thing. So this belief that our souls came here, like picked this body to be incarnated in, so that it could experience some things. Didn't get to experience maybe last time if you believe in reincarnation. So your soul came here in this human existence to experience some things. And it came here to express itself and to share its essence with the world. Now, the ironic kicker of this, that's like God's sixth sense of humor to me, is that like our soul comes here to express its full self and share what it is with the world. But then we're born into these little tiny vulnerable packages that are super gooey and kind of ugly in the beginning, and then they get beautiful. But we're born into these little weird packages, and then we don't remember why we came. Like, what a joke, right? And then, because we feel all vulnerable and we have all these weird cultural things going on, we actually learn that it's bad to express our whole self, because we might get judged, we might get labeled, we might experience pain. Which brings me back to, don't run from pain. It happens. And if it's happened to you and you're listening to this podcast, you made it. So you know how to make it through pain. You can do it, and you'll do it again. Oh, have I loved, and oh, have I lost, and oh my God, the heartache of loving, like a whole soul love, and then not having that, losing it, not participating in this love that you dreamed, imagined, and wanted. That pain is so real. Those of you who have known that, and I've known that. And many people are like, yeah, I'm not even going to date or do anything like that or fall in love again. And, you get your heart crushed and it hurts and you feel like you've been bruised all over your body for days. And I cried, and then I cried, and then I talked to a wise friend, and then I cried, and then I journaled, and then I did a fire ceremony, and then I cooked, and then I cried a little bit, and then I watched MasterChef, and then it shifted and the pain subsided. The pain doesn't last forever. And you know how to get through it. You know how to survive the initial shock of it. And you know how to start taking deep breaths and taking one step forward out of it. So it's okay. You can express yourself fully. You can handle the pain of being looked at weirdly. Let me get my grammar correct. And this is why the world needs shamans. The world needs shamans too, I think, finally, because this is a damn beautiful place to live, this planet. And if you don't make time to be present with it, the whole thing, this whole existence is going to pass you by. And you will not have participated in it, other than in the little rat in the maze game, which is fun, don't get me wrong. I love going to work and making money and spending money and decorating houses. It's also fun, raising kids, sending them to college. What a joy to be able to do that, and what a privilege. And there's more. There's more to life than meets the eye. So I invite you, if you hear the calling or if any of this resonates with you, I invite you in. It's not like a secret club. There's no secret handshake. You don't have to walk on fire to get in or any of that shit. Just say yes. Just say yes. And if you're on this path and you feel lost sometimes and confused and bamboozled and hoodwinked, yeah, That's part of the path too. Part of the delight is getting lost and then remembering what you're doing here. What a joy to remember. Like, oh yeah, I'm a shaman. I know how to do this. So, my darlings, this is why the world needs shamans. Because I can't imagine looking at life any other way. Because once you see, you can't unsee. Once you know, you can't unknow. And the world only gets more and more amazing the wider your eyes open and the wider your heart opens. So anyway, it's a delicious life. And I'm glad Eve took a bite out of that apple because the wisdom teachings are delightful and delicious. And so is this earth. So this is why the world needs shamans right now. And if you need one, if you feel like you're in an existential crisis, if you feel like you are stuck in a pattern and can't get out of it and want to shift, if you want to shift, you can. You can. So reach out to us. You can find out all the things about how to reach any of us at Naughty Shaman on the Naughty Shaman page, www.naughtyshaman.com. naughtyshaman.com. And yeah, take one step, one small step. If you need one small step, wake up tomorrow at sunrise, go outside, no matter the weather, wrap yourself up in a blanket if you need to, and take 5 deep breaths with your eyes closed. And then open your eyes as if you were seeing the world for the first time and it was looking back at you. Enjoy, my loves. This has been Natalie Carlisle coming to you live from Naughty Shaman. And I am so grateful for you tuning into these episodes. It just means the world to me. And if you have ideas or suggestions for podcasts, let me know. I would love to hear it. So signing off from HQ, where we like to keep the sacred a little bit wild and totally real. I'll see you at sunrise. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we are so grateful. Please reach out to us. Let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in our future episodes. Get in touch in the comments because we love to hear from you. And you can reach us on social media.